the FICCI UK IBC webinar on internationalization of higher education, organized against the backdrop of recently released National Education Policy 2020. Good morning to, of course, our UK friends and, of course, others who are in that part of the world. And good afternoon to Indian participants. I welcome Dr. Daniel Rycroft, Chair of the India Dialogue, University of East Anglia, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General Association of Indian Universities, Professor N.V. Verghese, Vice Chancellor, National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, Mr. Jayant Krishna, Group CEO, UKIBC, and Dr. Vidya Yaravatkar, Chair, FICCI Higher Education Committee and Pro-Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, to this very significant discussion. I also welcome all the participants from higher education institutions, faculty members, and industry leaders. We have a total registration of about 640 delegates, although I see about 173 registered over here at the moment. The program is also going live on the YouTube. And we have participation from over 22 countries, including SAARC, ASEAN, USA, Canada, Australia, Africa, and UAE. I would like to also specially acknowledge the UK higher education leaders who have joined us through UKIBC. The NEP 2020 has rightly focused on internationalization of Indian higher education, given the 21st century demands triggered by globalization and now, of course, deglobalization due to the COVID-19, exponential technologies, and young demography that we have. The three-pronged approach taken by NEP 2020 is internationalization at home, trans-global alliances, and export of education services. Today in the webinar, we will deliberate on implementation roadmap for the policy direction provided by NEP, particularly in the area of cross-mobility of students with credit bank facilitation, research collaboration, teaching and faculty collaboration and mobility, promote India as a global study destination through Study in India program, top 100 global universities invited to set up campuses, and also allowing top ranking Indian universities to set up campuses abroad, promoting Indian higher education abroad through education fairs. We do have an eminent panel of experts who will be talking about what could be the implementation roadmap on all these areas and more. With this, may I now invite Dr. Vidya Yaravatkar, Chairperson of FICCI Higher Education Committee, to give her remarks.
Thank you, Shobha. And it's wonderful to have these discussions on an international forum like this with members from UKIBC as well as from India. NEP 2020, the National Education Policy 2020, as Shobha very rightly said, for the first time has discussed internationalization in great length and breadth. The earlier national education policies did touch upon, but very, very discreetly. And this policy speaks great volumes on the impact of globalization that has what globalization has had on higher education in India, and the need to internationalize higher education in India so that we benchmark ourselves with the best in the world. The internationalization of higher education for India is not new. Several years ago, hundreds of years ago, we had these universities like Nalanda, Takshashila, Vikramshila, which attracted a large number of foreign scholars, both students as well as teachers. After independence, of course, there was a lull, naturally so, because we wanted to concentrate on massification of higher education, provide access of higher education to our own people. Now, of course, since 1991, when economies opened up, naturally, people started talking about internationalization in the Indian higher education scenario, because we had to teach our students to be such that they are capable to go and work in any part of the world. And we had so many of these MNCs also setting shops in India that we needed globally competent human resource. However, this National Education Policy 2020 has well defined the various aspects of internationalization of higher education. Amongst all this, of course, the COVID pandemic that has hit the world and therefore hit the higher education system, of course, as well as the school education system. And I feel that with this pandemic, internationalization of higher education has really got, has come to the forefront in a much larger way than what it was before. With online education, now there is access to any teacher anywhere in the world. There is a lot of co-teaching that has been happening. There is a lot of co-learning among students from different parts of the world sitting in one virtual classroom that is happening. And of course, joint research because faculty from across the world has started coming much closer than what they were before. I still remember when there were requests for faculties from Indian universities to travel abroad, they had to go through a rigorous approval process of at the university level. But now, yeah, it's so nice to see Indian faculty members teaching in global classrooms, in foreign classrooms, and so is with the foreign teachers that we have so much access to. Not just by invitations from universities, but even through some of these online companies like Coursera, edX, Udemy, and several others that do provide online education by foreign faculty. So we are seeing a different kind of internationalization of higher education in India and I'm sure globally as well. Dr. Pankaj Mittal will speak about the network that we plan to establish in India, which again I think the UK IBC should be an associate member of. We plan to have an Indian network for internationalization of education in such a way that we want Indian universities to come together and discuss internationalization of what it is relevant to us and what it would be relevant to even our foreign partners. So we are working in silos when it comes to internationalization of higher education. And I don't think after this pandemic, any one of us can believe to be working in silos. We need to be working in collaboration. We need to be interdependent. And therefore, this network is going to find great opportunities for member universities to internationalize their universities if they haven't. And we also plan to have some foreign partners who can be associate members on this network in such a way that we can learn from them and they can learn from us. And therefore, there will be a great sharing of best practices. We've already seen a lot of interest amongst the foreign networks. Like just yesterday, I was in a meeting with the Obrial Global, which they called as a global observatory, which is based out of Spain, but have partners in chapters in Africa and Latin America along with Europe. And they want to establish an India chapter and they want to be associate members with us. Same is with NAFSA, with EAIE, and I'm sure UK IBC will also find it extremely useful to be associated with this network. So we see a different kind of internationalization. There is a lot of excitement in India, and the NEP 20, I think, is not just limited to the Indian higher education system, but I'm sure many other foreign countries can think of adopting and adapting this NEP 2020 for them as well. It is an education policy that has been framed for learning of the 21st century. And what we all envision that our universities, the way they should teach, the kind of pedagogy that our teachers should follow, the kind of collaborations that we should make. All this is so well prescribed in the NEP 2020 that I don't think we need to wait for the government to really implement it at the level of colleges and universities. But as university leaders, there is so much that we can implement by ourselves. And that's where, again, we would like UK IBC to also look at how y'all can be a part of the implementation strategy of the NEP 2020. So with these words, I welcome all of you on behalf of the FICCI Higher Education Committee, and we have excellent speakers at this session, and I'm sure we're going to learn from each other. I think with the kind of webinars almost every alternate day that we have and we speak at, I cannot not believe that internationalization is really going in full swing. So over to you, Shobha.
you, Vidya. I think you're right. Internationalization in India has been happening for some years now, but it's been in silos. What I think the NEP 2020 is going to do is going to help us, kind of leverage and scale up and speed up the entire effort. And that is where I think organizations like NEPA and AIU are going to play a major role. So, but before I move on to the next speaker, it is my pleasure to actually release the first FICCI EduRap. It's a bi-monthly e-newsletter, which we are releasing it. And we thought that this platform would be an app platform where we have participants from across the globe. This is going to be a repository of well-researched articles, review papers, and research papers. And we would like to have, reflections on both national and global policy reforms in higher education, economy, and research and innovation. Also on technology, startups, etc. Through this newsletter, we also attempt to provide an opportunity to universities and institutions to showcase their best practices, their startup activities, incubation, launch of new programs, etc. We will also have a specific section that talks about the recent FICCI initiatives and reports that are launched through FICCI research activities. This EduRap is going to be posted on the FICCI website, LinkedIn page, and Twitter handles, and will be reached out to more than 50,000 Indian and foreign stakeholders. Do download the EduRap and have a look at it. We do have our chairperson's article in that, and as well as President NUS has also sent in his article. And we welcome all of you to also reach out to us with your research papers and articles, which we will be more than happy to publish in subsequent EduRaps. With this, may I now request Professor N.V. Verghese, Vice Chancellor, National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, to give his remarks.
Thank you, Doctor. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shobha, Dr. Vidya, and fellow panelists. Let me thank you very much, UK India Limited and FICCI, for inviting me to express my views. Friends, in the next 10 minutes that is allocated to me, I'll try to pick up some issues and highlight some of the issues. The first point that I would like to highlight or underline is the fact that whether it is now or 1,000 years ago, there was no way of not internationalizing knowledge, because knowledge production may be national, but it used to cross borders. And knowledge, but however, the knowledge producing institutions were not permitted to move from one place to the other. What we find normally is that it's the students who moved, the teachers who moved, the institutions remained, and the courses remained in those countries. I think the major change that is taking place is from that point of view. And so far as India is concerned, it is very important to make a distinction between internationalization and globalization of higher education. I am making this point, I'll come to the details later, is that when you are talking about the students going out of the country, it is more in the process of globalization. And when the students are expected to come to India, it is more considered to be a process of internationalization. But let me make this distinction, because globalization is more seen as a market-mediated processes, whereas internationalization does not necessarily be associated with the market processes. Or in other words, the globalization can be seen as a subset of the internationalization processes. If you look at from this point of view, there is a mobility. Internationalization is always, or internationalization, market-mediated internationalization is always associated with the mobility. And when we talk about mobility, there are 4 forms of mobility or modes of trade under the GATS framework that we talk about. The programs move, institutions move, students move, and teachers move. And so far as we are concerned globally, what we find is that teacher movement and student movement were very common. But what is new is the institutional mobility that is a contribution of this century, especially the first decade of this century. And what we find is that program mobility, MOOCs and other associated program mobility is a contribution of the previous decade, the second decade of the current century. So it becomes very important. But in India, when you are talking about internationalization, or when we are asking this, we expecting students to come, it's a different type of arrangement. It is not a market mediated process always, because India is giving also fellowships, in fact. So, but there are two issues which are very important. What India wants, I'll come to the new policy and get into that discussion later. But what India needs, whether we need to internationalize Indian education or whether we want to internationalize higher education in India. These two are two different things. When we talk about internationalization of Indian education, we feel that I was holding a meeting of the Nordic India Summit on internationalization of higher education. This is a report that has come out. It is already in our website. So one question that the ambassadors in many of these countries were asking is that what exactly you are expecting? Are you expecting that Indian courses or study programs on India, of India, to be introduced in the universities? Is that you mean by internationalization? Or you want to see that the students and also the study programs of other countries will be coming to India? Which is the meaning, or what is the meaning of this internationalization? We had to see this in the context of India, that especially many a time we have a tendency that the internationalization is confined to politically, or sometimes administratively, it is more confined to offering certain Indian courses in some of the universities. That is an important dimension, but it's only a very limited dimension of internationalization, because 98% of the students globally, they do not move from their countries. Only 2% of the students move. In India, only 99, only 0.8% of the students move from this country to other countries for education. So therefore, if you are talking about internationalization to have a major role in terms of the changes that you are talking about in higher education, then we should address 99% of the students rather than focusing only on this 1% of the students. That is where the market mediated process of globalization becomes more important than the age-old traditions of internationalization becomes important, because it is very important to see that how these changes are taking place and what we need to do. So for example, I feel that India, the students going abroad from India, India sends the largest number of students out of the 5 million students studying, more than 5 million students studying abroad. And what India sends around 305,000 students, 100,000 students from India. And what one finds is that most of these students are going to United States, 44% are going to United States, then UK, and then to Australia. What one found was that in the last 2 or 3 years, there's a decline in the student enrollment to UK. But what is surprisingly found was that I read newspapers, I do not have exact figures, 93% increase of Indian students going to UK in the year 2020. This is a substantial jump from what it used to be in the past 2 years. So one dimension is that these students are going, if I can use a pathway, this pathway is that high cost and high return pathway. This is one pathway of internationalization that we find from India. And I find that this is part of globalization rather than internationalization. It's a process of market mediated one. So that is one of the reasons why Indian students are more attracted to United States, UK, or Australia, where it is not the visa for the study that is important. The post-study visa becomes important. And if you see the fluctuations in the student enrollments, Indian students enrollment in UK is a very classic example of how the post-study visa and employment situation is influencing the demand for education in the universities in that host countries. So this is one part. The second part of Indian internationalization of education in India is mostly in terms of attracting students, how India can become an education hub. This is a low cost, low return pathway. If I can use that word, it is a low cost, low return pathway. And Since it's a low cost, low return pathway, we are not in a position to attract students from the developed countries. Most of the students who are coming to India, 47,000 students coming to India, most of the students are from the developing countries, mostly from South Asia and African countries, So there is a substantial difference in the attitude that we are talking about. Now, what the new policy is talking about, we had this provision for this mobility of students, mobility of teachers, and also mobility of programs. We also have like Indira Gandhi Open University, like the Open University of UK, which attracts a large number of students, not only from India and also from outside. But what was not in India, what was not permitted in India as is the facility for foreign universities to come, open branch, independent branch campuses, offer courses and award degrees. This was not permitted. We had discussions in the parliament, there were discussions at different levels, but however, this was not permitted. This new policy offers that opportunity. It offers that any university which is within the first 100 ranking, global ranking, whether it is the Times Higher Education ranking, US ranking, or any other ranking, can start the branch campuses in India and offer courses, So that is a possibility. But one has to work out the details of what are its implications. When you're talking about these type of changes, a substantial change, and how this will affect the other higher education institutions in India, and how this will become, higher education in India will become a more market mediated process than what it is today. If we agree with, or if the foreign institutions are coming. The first question is that whether these foreign institutions within the 100 will come to India. What is their attraction? The second point is that if they are coming, what are the facilities that you'll be trying to create, So the new education policy provides an opportunity to have a total mobility in all forms, mobility of programs, students, teachers, and institutions. This is a new change that you are talking about. So the branch campuses is one of the major important dimensions. I think I would like to mention two important other developments which are also mentioned in the policy. One is that we are going ahead with the higher education qualification framework, which will define not only the skill, but all the competencies to be achieved by the students. So the degree will not be evaluated on the basis of number of years or the duration of the degree. It will be evaluated on the basis of the skills that you produce. And in the labor market, it is not the skills that are looked into, the competencies that you make. The difference between the skills and competencies being, skills is something that is directly imparted, and competence is something that you can do with the skills that you already possess, So this is very important. A second development which is contributed to the internationalization process in India is what is called as a Global Convention of Qualification Recognition. This discussion was going on from 2017 onwards, and UNESCO has made a draft. One of the members from India was a member of the drafting committee. And finally, in November 2019, this has been accepted. Now, the Indian government of India has to ratify this global convention of qualification recognition. Not only this, but also there is a regional convention, that is the Japanese in Tokyo Convention. So Tokyo Convention of 2011-12 is also not ratified by government of India. So these are the efforts. To put it differently, what I mean to say is that one of the important changes that we find is that this permission for institutional mobility. At the same time, it is also important that the conditions are created whereby these institutions will be in a position to survive very well, survive in a positive sense, because they also want to make little bit of profit, and repatriation of the profit and other things will become, whether they will produce surplus of profit, and there is a lot of difference between these two terms in the context of internationalization, because there are issues related to taxation and also repatriation, So these issues are not at final. So therefore, my feeling is that this issue of permitting foreign institutions to come and establish campuses, along with the higher education qualification framework, along with the ratification of the global qualification recognition convention of global convention and regional convention for qualification recognition, will give or give a different orientation for internationalization that you are talking about. Let me end by saying that there are many initiatives started even before the policy in 2018, 17, 18, and 19 GAN programs, whereby we promote faculty members from other foreign institutions to come to India. And there are also a large number of research collaborations. But these were collaborations rather than a movement of the institutions that is seen in the policy now. So I think the policy gives a lot of hope and a scope for internationalization. Now it is left to us all to detail out what does it mean and how this can be implemented in a more systematic way. I think I am finishing my 10 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Shobha. I'll stop here.
Verghese, as usual, you have very meticulously dissected the NEP 2020 and actually highlighted those institutional mechanisms that are either being worked upon or will be worked upon that will help in facilitation of, I think, both internationalization of Indian higher education as well as internationalization of higher education in the country. So with this, may I now request Dr. Daniel Rycroft, Chair of India Dialogue, University of East Anglia, to give his remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a great pleasure to be able to speak with you today about national education. I think UK universities can really engage this question. I want to speak a bit today about the work that the India Dialogue is doing and to contextualize that in respect of the broader India-UK connection, focusing on a concept that is actually quite integral to the national education policy, which is global citizenship education. Let me first highlight our university's solidarity with all friends and colleagues across India and elsewhere who are suffering at the moment with COVID, and also to express a point made by the UK government. The UK's higher education institutions are very much open for business and looking forward to welcoming Indian colleagues and Indian students into our midst for this coming academic year. One point that I think should mention is the ongoing and prolonged commitment that the UK Research and Innovation Department have to the internationalization of the Indian research sphere. There's a lot of investment at national and intergovernmental level. Challenges. There is the which enables some very far-reaching and properly socially engaged research to take place. I think I'm experiencing some connection problem. Sorry about this. I'll try my best to preserve the.
No issues. Yeah, please carry on. Yeah.
I think you are very clear. The volume needs to be increased. That's all. I don't think there's any lack of clarity, but the volume needs to go up.
So global citizenship education is a field of higher education. And what it can be used here is to highlight the social ethos that underpins the new education policy. At the heart of this policy document is an invigoration of some of the constitutional values that are earmarked in India's constitution and that pertain to the social responsibility of all higher education providers. And so one can learn from existing discourses that are taking place in terms of global citizenship education and think of ways in which they apply to the Indian society and also to this challenge really that sits quite centrally within the policy, which is to make global citizenship education relevant to all higher education learners in India. There's also this very interesting commitment that pertains to the whole document, which takes us really into what are called the Sustainable Development Goals. A lot of the points that are mentioned in section 11 of the new education document really make it clear the extent to which higher education providers have this social responsibility to remain accessible and inclusive and relevant to society. And so this is where we can begin and also sustain our inquiry into citizenship and the values that pertain to those kinds of citizenship ethics. Now, underpinning the Sustainable Development Goals are the 5 principles. One of the principles is being for all institutions to be pro-people. And I think we can identify in this document a lot of pro-people and pro-student thinking, and that is to be welcomed and maintained. So what else can we do? The University of East Anglia has, through its intersectoral partnerships with organizations like the UK India Business Council, like the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, we have been working hard to develop this umbrella framework of university social responsibility. There is a call in the new education policy for holistic thinking and collective action. And we are certain that if we can harness the potential that's raised by this increasing commitment to university social responsibility, we're going to be able to internationalize in a way that really makes sense to many of the participants or stakeholders in this evolving economy, this evolving scenario. So let us also just reflect briefly on the history of this document. It is the product of a very extensive stakeholder dialogue by the Ministry of Resource Development. And it attempts, like I mentioned before, to make the constitution of India to speak more clearly, to resonate in and amongst the minds of people who participate in teaching and learning. And so in a part, it is fulfilling the vision of one of India's educational visionaries, the philosopher and diplomat Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who wanted higher education providers to fulfill this socially engaged and community-centered work. So I want us all to think then through this proposition that higher education serves the needs of society, whether the society around us or people in other countries, and also the people of the future, whereby we can conceptualize global citizenship along a much longer duration than that which is anticipated by the Sustainable Development. They're very far-sighted in as much as they're working like this policy document to an engagement that is geared around success by 2030. But we also need to think beyond 2030 in all of our partnership and internationalization works. We need to think about the crossovers between this pro-people approach and a pro-planet approach. And I know the UK government is very excited by the potential interaction with industry and political colleagues in India concerning the Committee of Parties 26 or COP26 event next year. So what we can perhaps close on, if I may close on this final rather interesting concept, which is this concept of Vishwa Guru, which the policy highlights. So this really pertains to this promise or potential that India's higher education providers will be world leaders, Vishwa Guru, world educators, world teachers, world leaders. I will put it out there that we can create a specific engagement, which is helping us transit from today's kind of policy inauguration through the implementation of such works as the University Social Responsibility Agenda. And I can highlight that the University of East Anglia, in collaboration with UK IBC and the University of Hyderabad, have actually released in March this year a document called University Social Responsibility: From Dialogue to Implementation. And this is available. You should be able to find it. If your universities are wanting to connect on this program, then please call our colleague Tara Panjwani, based at the UK India Business Council, for further information. But beyond that, I would put it out there that we need to have this very long-term vision. We have to bring a holistic vision into play in all of our actions, with a view to extending thinking across all of the 5 principles that underpin the UN's Agenda 2030. So we need to not only be pro-people and pro-planet and pro-prosperity, we also need to be pro-peace and pro-partnership. And so this is why a collective engagement with this idea of world leadership is needed, because we won't be able to understand or ascertain the value of India's world leadership, I think, unless there is a clear platform to do so. So there's been a bit of background work on this to try and enhance the communication and to enhance the significance and relevance of this knowledge that is being generated to all sections of society. So we can have an intersectoral ongoing dialogue or samvad concerning India's international reach. We need to, I think, highlight this idea of academic diplomacy and knowledge diplomacy much further. So the potential is there, the policy is there, implementation work is going on. We just need to continue to remain committed and to find ways to knit it all together. So thank you for bearing with me and some of the technological issues. It should be fine, I think. And I welcome further inputs and obviously this ongoing discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Obviously, you have done a thorough study of the National Education Policy 2020, and you very beautifully outlined the collaboration opportunities that one can leverage, underpinning the SDG goals, and leveraging the shared values that both the countries, have, and develop global citizens, together. And on the Vishwaguru piece, I think the next speaker, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, will be able to talk about how the international network of academics that Vidya spoke about, how that network can be, leveraged, that both countries can work towards that goal. So with this, I will invite Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General of Association of Indian Universities, to give her remarks.
Okay, thank you, Shobha. Thanks for introducing and thanks for inviting me on this forum. Daniel, yesterday, University Social Responsibility, there was a program of Hyderabad University. Dr. Varghese, Dr. Vidya, Dr. Jayant, and all the participants who are here. When we talk of internationalization and when we were talking of Vishwaguru, we were really Vishwaguru in times of Nalanda, when in one university we used to have 10,000 international scholars, and that too not only from surrounding universities, but from far off countries as well. So for India, internationalization is not new if we talk of ancient India. But in between, I think there was a period when the internationalization was not being done so much in terms of international students in India. And that is why when we are talking in context of the national education policy, it gives 4 clear-cut areas where it says that yes, India needs to promote internationalization and India will be promoting internationalization. First, obviously, everybody has talked about entry of top 100 foreign universities of the world to India. They will be allowed to establish campuses. Second is allowing Indian universities to set up campuses abroad so that Indian knowledge systems, Indian family systems, ancient knowledge of India, areas like yoga, Ayurveda, which are the best in India, they can be taken out. And thirdly, the first time it is done that the credits of the foreign universities will be counted in the degrees for the Indian universities. That is third thing. And fourth thing, very aptly the policy says that yes, the Indian universities, they do need to do a lot of internationalization, and for that first thing should be that they should be establishing the offices, international offices in their universities. So these four things are very clearly stated in the national education policy. Now, how we are going to work out on these four things is the following. For example, when we talk of foreign credits to be counted in the Indian universities, the concept of ABC is coming up, Academic Bank of Credit. And this Academic Bank of Credit has found favor with many people, many foreign institutions also. In ABC, ABC will be like a commercial bank in which we deposit money. In ABC, we will be depositing credits. That means in addition to the programs of study, we'll also get admission in the courses, specific courses. So far, it was not allowed in India, but henceforth, within a program, if there are say 16 courses, so admission will be there to those courses also. And those courses can be attended from multiple universities, including foreign universities and including online education. So that means once you deposit credits in ABC, Academic Bank of Credit, they could be Indian universities credits, they could be foreign universities credits, and they could be online credits. And all the three can be bunched together to get a degree whenever you reach a threshold level. So that is how the counting of foreign university credits in the Indian system will be done. Now, with regard to, say, foreign campuses in India, of course, there will be regulations which will specify that what type of universities and what will be the overall modalities with regard to revenue sharing, with regard to fees, everything. So that detailed regulations are yet to come. But then I would like to talk about something which we are wanting to do at AIU level, which Vidya also spoke and Shobha also spoke, that is a network of international educators. So what we feel is that in India, many universities want to do internationalization, but they do not have that type of exposure to enter into internationalization. They don't know how to go about internationalization. Therefore, the programs like Study in India program, they talk only about something like 100 universities out of 1,000 universities. So that means 90% of the universities we are almost discarding because they are not able to enter into what we at AI are proposing is that we will have a consortium of universities who are wanting to do internationalization, whether they are good at it or bad at it, doesn't matter. Who wants to do internationalization? So it will be a group of those universities, a consortium of those universities, which we will call Indian Network of International Educators. And then in that, good ones will be hand-holding the bad ones. There will be a roadmap. There can be a national policy on internationalization of higher education to decide how to go about with internationalization. So that group, we are in the process of forming. Next meeting is on 21st. Shobha, I think you must have received the notice. The 21st is the next meeting. We are wanting to have it as a consortium of universities. Apart from that, India, like Gyan was mentioned by Professor Varghese, we are having a scheme, we can say, of institutions of eminence. So we have sort of selected 10 universities, private sector, and 10 universities in the government sector as institutions of eminence, who are the best universities of the country, who are given the complete autonomy, and they are given the mandate that you have to become world-class universities in future, for which a lot of autonomy is given, which also includes having foreign teachers as well as foreign students in the university. So 20% of the students can be foreign students, 20% of the teachers can be foreign teachers. So once that comes up, so there will be a lot of internationalization. And as Daniel was also mentioning, once these 100 universities come, I don't know which 100, we had a webinar with Harvard University, and I asked Harvard that now that Indian government is allowing foreign universities to come to India, will Harvard set up a campus in India? Harvard said no, but not because they don't want to come to India, because they have a policy of not setting up campuses anywhere in the world. They say if you want to experience Harvard, come to Harvard. We don't want to set up campuses abroad. But so therefore, we don't know how many of them will come. But it will be beneficial for our universities because there can be a lot of collaboration. There can be teacher exchange. The foreign professors can come to our universities. So apart from a lot of collaboration, it will also increase a lot of competition among our universities and the foreign universities. which will help our universities to perform better. And secondly, a lot of foreign exchange goes out of our country. Every year, about 7 to 8 lakh, means 700,000, 800,000 students are going out of the country to study foreign universities, and they are spending something like $2 billion every year. So those $2 billion, that foreign exchange can remain with us if many of those students decide to study in India in these foreign universities, and obviously the cost of living is less in India. Therefore, they will be saving on the cost also. So foreign universities, we are really welcoming, and then we were waiting for something like 10 years. There was a bill in the parliament for establishment and operation of foreign universities in India, but now it has come after 10 years. So this is very much welcome. And apart from that, at AIU, one more initiative which we are taking is we are computerizing the information of all the universities. So we are making a database in which the information of all the universities would be there. So what we have already made one AIU admission portal. In AIU admission portal, if you want to pursue any particular program, you write the name of the program and you will get the list of the universities which are offering that program in India. So that is already functional. But what we also want to make is AIU collaboration portal. In AIU collaboration portal, what we have experienced is that when we go to foreign countries, they say if we want to collaborate in a particular area, we don't know which Indian university is good in that particular area. So AIU collaboration portal will give a for every university, they will give that what are your 5 best departments along with their faculty positions, research, facilities, everything. So once that is there, then any university, suppose you want to say collaborate in quantum physics. So as soon as you write quantum physics in AIU portal, you will know that which Indian university is doing well in quantum physics and with whom you can collaborate. So such type of things we are trying to do at AIU level, collaboration portal, international network of Indian network of international educators, and many more things, so that we can attract foreign students to India, and at the same time, our students. I mean, we can. I mean, our minister says we should have a project called stay in India and study in India and stay in India. That they can stay in India instead of going out, they can stay in India. So a lot of work is being done on internationalization, and I hope that this will bear fruits and we will be able to do much better in the area of internationalization. Thank you, Shobha. Thanks for inviting.
Thank you, Pankaj. Again, very eloquently, you have put forward what AIU is doing in the space of internationalization, and it has always played a very, very important role in collaboration, with foreign universities. And I think under your dynamic leadership, we will see much more progress in this area. I think more questions, probably we can take it up. You're on mute.
Equivalence of degrees, that also now we are trying to shift the focus from duration to credits. So that is especially for UK universities, that is a very big issue because they have 1-year masters and those degrees, and they cannot pursue higher education or a job in India. So we are trying our best. Let us see how much we succeed. That instead of duration of the degrees, we shift to credits. That if minimum number of credits are equal, then we should be able to give the equivalence. But we are still working on it.
Absolutely. And today in the morning, you shared the article with the Vice Chair UGC that you have written on credit banks. So we are very grateful. Thank you so much. We will now come to the last but not the least speaker, Mr. Jayant Krishna, Group CEO of UKIBC. Over to you, Jayant.
Thank you, Shobha. Dr. Varghese, Dr. Daniel, Dr. Pankaj, my colleague from UKIBC, Tara. Only yesterday I was there with Dr. K. Kasturirangan, spent more than an hour on the new education policy and his pearls of wisdom. And I didn't realize within 24 hours, I'll do another webinar, on this. I think let's talk about internationalization, especially one major change in the policy. We all know top 100 universities have been allowed to set up, foreign universities have been allowed to set up campuses in India. what's the kind of size we are talking about? It's very important to quantify the market size. We are talking about 3.7 crore, that is 37 million students in undergrad and postgrad level studying in Indian universities, about 1,000 universities and 52,000 colleges of higher education colleges in India. 1,000 universities roughly, and roughly 52,000 higher education colleges, and 3.7 crore, that is 37 million students study in India at the undergrad and postgrad level at any point of time. So I think it's a too large a market, and the second biggest market all over the world, next only to China. So I don't think any university, any country can ignore this market altogether. And as it was mentioned, a very small, less than 1% of Indian students are able to go abroad. Then this policy surely gives a huge, impetus. UKIBC has been working. We have a direct relationship with 16 British universities, and 6 of them are in the top 20. So out of this 100 global list, 20 universities are from UK itself, and out of those 20 UK universities which are in the global top 100, we directly work with 6 of them. When we work, which means we have played and we still play very active role in their Indian footprint through a variety of interventions, through advocacy, through other direct measures. And we have been working on employability, on research collaborations between UK and Indian universities. One thing which I wanted to, since there are some people who have a role in policy making also in this seminar, I wanted to say that this top 100, the number which is there, which is right now it appears, we took it up yesterday also with Dr. Kasturi Rangan. It's an absolute university ranking. But I think, in addition to absolute university ranking, we have to look at, subject-wise ranking, also a school or discipline-wise ranking. If you are collaborating with the healthcare, you have to go by the healthcare ranking, of that part of the university. If you're going for development economics, you have to look at that. So I think it's very important to handpick those sectors which are of importance to India, and there whosoever is ranked global top 100 or 50, and invite them, because absolute rankings do not mean much, because no university is going to replicate the entire campus in US or UK and create it here. So you have to go by subject-wise ranking. That's very important. Second is, as we have seen in COVID, online education is the new normal, and British universities have a huge experience of online education, and they're very keen to do work here. But I think we had a meeting with MHRD, also one of the joint secretaries there, a couple of weeks back, and that's what we said, that you have to allow, so one doesn't know, for online education, ideally, not just the top 100 global, but a whole lot of universities have to be allowed to do business with India, and business is a wrong word in education context, but actually offer courses to Indian students. Just to, as she said, Dr. Pankaj said that Harvard doesn't plan to come. Similarly, we are in touch with the top 20 universities in UK. We are with their vice chancellors, and we're trying to help them explore their Indian dream. Beyond attracting Indian students or just research collaborations. And there are a few of them who have said that as a policy, quite like Harvard, that we are not contemplating setting up an office in India. So you really have to broaden that 100 horizon, also go by school-wise and stream-wise ranking rather than the absolute university ranking. That's very, very important. And I'm happy you mentioned about the learning outcome-based recognition rather than the elapsed duration. UK universities, you said India doesn't recognize. The fact is, government does not recognize in India the master's degrees of UK, but the private sector, the NGO space. So I think 95% of India does recognize, but I think government does not recognize. And I'm sure all these issues will get addressed in terms of recognition of degrees, especially the UK master's degree, as the focus shifts from elapsed time time to the learning outcomes and the credits one gets. So I think, this is a huge agenda for mutual recognition of degrees. That's very important. I believe India has already recently signed one with France. I think it has to be extended to UK and other countries of significance. Just want to point out a small issue about equalization levy. Since a lot of British universities who had a relationship with India, their physical education model has shifted to online. And as per the new e-commerce guidelines, this attracts a 2% equalization levy. So which is a hygiene factor, but I think this is something the policymakers have to look at, because it's nobody is offering online thing as a choice, but because of the pandemic they have to do it, and therefore this equalization levy should ideally not be applicable. So I think these are the key things. Research was mentioned. Some research collaborations UK-IBC has facilitated with between British universities and Indian universities. But research is a matter of culture. Barring a few exceptions in India, I'm sorry to say that, but the research culture does not exist in most Indian universities. Barring a few exceptions. So we need to find out that whether this National Research Foundation, which is going to be which will be operative. Would they fund this kind of a joint research also between British and Indian universities or not? So what are going to be the modalities? And that's very important. Also, as for foreign universities, the guidelines have been made, because the concept has come in the policy, but operative guidelines have to be made. UK-IBC has volunteered, given our tremendous international exposure, to help MHRD to make guidelines which are more fair and equitable. And also the new Act of Parliament, I'm sure, which will get passed to regulate the foreign universities. It's very important to line that Act not just from an Indian thought process or perspective, but from a global perspective, and ensure fairness, equity, and the right play, the way international universities operate. That's very important. And whenever government needs help, we are prepared to collaborate. And I'm very happy this session, all the speakers came out with such relevant, thoughts and views. UK-IBC is very committed to ensure a handshake between the UK universities and Indian universities on a much higher footing than just these 16 that we partner with right now. Into online open education, on usage of technology, design of curriculum, evolution of standards, all these things in ensuring a right research and creating a right research culture. That's very, very important. Teachers training. I'm happy that education policy is talking about teachers training, which is a portfolio. It exists in India, but I think it needs to be taken to the next level of capability and maturity. And UK has a huge footprint in that space, where we could collaborate. And as very clearly, Dr. Daniel said, the university social responsibility, the corporate social responsibility concept has to be extended to the university social responsibility, and look at what footprint the universities leave on the community in general beyond their students. I think that's very, very important, and we would like to work further in that space, and also the play which international universities can have in ensuring the employability of higher education in India. A few years back, when I was with the Skill India mission, as the Chief Executive Officer of National Skill Development Corporation, I found this, the employability of Indian students overall is just about 20, anywhere between, estimates vary, but anywhere between 20 to 30% Indian students are employable. Higher education students are employable. And we can imagine, what a drain it is on national resources, because education is still largely publicly funded in the country. UK and the British universities are prepared to travel that extra mile to ensure that employability of Indian students goes up from the current level to any level, which is about 60-70%, if not higher. And because both these countries, we have had a shared history, a common culture, we have big democracies, and friendly countries with a lot of collaboration in the higher education space already happening, and we would like to ensure that such collaboration is mutually beneficial to both the countries and both the universities, and we are prepared to travel the extra mile to ensure that and to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayant. I think you actually covered all the questions that my team had put up to be asked. So the first point that you made was, why focus only on top 100? And this is something that FICCI has been recommending to the government for several years, that you cannot just go by a general global ranking. There are several universities who may not be in the top ranking, but there are departments and programs that may be world class, and they may be more relevant for India's context. So we need to actually map that, and I think both Dr. Varghese and Dr. Mittal are here, and they are the are linked to the government at the moment. So I'm sure in your recommendations do put in that put that across. The point that you made on the research culture, we do not have a research culture, and that's a major challenge. And I want to throw open this question to our Indian side, Vidya, Pankaj, Dr. Varghese, you may come in. And for Daniel, I have a question, that what opportunities for research funding that he sees, for collaborative research funding. So over to any one of you who wants to take up this question.
Can I respond?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think Jayant has very rightly said that yes, the research ecosystem in India is not as great as what you would see it elsewhere, especially in the developed countries. But I think one of the major problems is, even our education system. At the school level or even at the university level, when you're doing your undergraduate studies, you are really never, you actually don't go through a culture of research as what, international baccalaureate schools and or liberal arts programs that are prevalent outside of India, those students go through. Like Symbiosis has an IB school, an international baccalaureate school, and the kind of research work that these young students do, and they're actually, the whole system, the pedagogy, and the way the curriculum is, it's actually, it does foster that ecosystem and a research mindset. So it begins there. The second, of course, is funding, because any kind of research requires funds, and whether universities are willing to, part with that fund for their faculty members, or again with the divide between public and private universities in India, where the government bodies are willing to give funds to good research projects that even come through private, enterprises. So funding is the second aspect. The third and most important, I think, our industries need to change their mindsets too, because most industries want to do R&D in silos again on their campuses, and you see very little industry actually setting up R&D centers on university campuses. So that's one thing that Indian industries now really need to look at. Instead of doing research, within their setups, can they actually look at collaborating with universities, hiring young research scholars, PhD scholars, to do the kind of research that they want to. I think once that gap is bridged, but now we see, of course, the way it has opened up and this whole process of internationalization. These foreign faculty really excite our Indian young faculty members, and I think they are looking forward to joint research programs. So at least in our university, I can definitely swear and say that there is a lot of, the whole system has changed. Indian and foreign faculty members has certainly risen up, and not just for teaching, but for research as well.
Anyone else wants to come in? I think Daniel had popped up. Maybe he wants to say.
To respond to the question about research, I think research cooperation is integral to the success of the UK's future internationalization strategy. I mean, there's historically been a very close relationship between our UK Research and Innovation Department and the equivalents in India. I think a lot of the work that's going on features this idea that I mentioned about global challenges. So we're able to invest a lot through what is called official development assistance in collaborative research that has this social and environmental and economic relevance and benefit. So my sense is that as long as the UK can continue to engage this proposition that higher level research is addressing societal challenges and environmental challenges and so forth, it'll continue to maintain that sense of purpose and that sense of solidarity with the higher education sector. But the responsibility also lies with the researchers to get their approaches set up in such a way that they're contributing significantly to the disciplines in India, that they have one eye on what relevance their research has to learners in India. I think from our conversation, or in terms of our conversation, that's going to be important, and to then communicate that relevance effectively. That's also going to be important, because a lot of research can appear to be rather specialist, and that needs to obviously carry on, because the research is there for the enhancement of learning in these disciplines, progressing knowledge and so forth. Keep abreast of this idea of social act and social responsibility and so forth, because that's where we can really enhance society together.
Absolutely.
Just a quick comment to make to what Dr. Vidya had mentioned. See, Versus is an exception. I mean, I was there on the board of governors of your skills university, and I've seen Dr. Majumdar, Swati, and all these work with a lot of dedication. So those, the same kind of business has to come across the board in universities in the country. That's a quick comment I wanted to make.
Absolutely. And I think just to add to Vidya and Daniel's perspective, that while we have to create the research ecosystem, which, talks about several other parameters, I think we need to build our capacities, because our faculty and the students perhaps who have come into the universities have not gone through the research grind. And so we need to also focus on capacity building of, research skills, and which is something which is currently missing. That's one point I wanted to make. And the second point is that it's not just the industry, that's the applied research. But then with the, what Daniel talked about, this sustainable development goals, climate change, there's so many relevant, societal challenges which are there. And that itself can become a research, collaborative research idea, and a project which perhaps can be done in collaboration with the communities, with the governments. So you need to expand and look beyond industry. I think we have completed our 1 hour session. We were late by about 10 minutes, and we are right now at 6:15. So I think if there are no other comments to be made by the panelists, I can take the liberty of closing the session. Is that all right with everybody? So thank you.
May I just
Tell us a bit about the work that Vicky has done in terms of the Higher Education Summit, because that's also very integral to the internationalization of Indian higher education. And I think there's no need to underplay that. I think that can also be highlighted.
Absolutely. And in fact, Vicky has played, thank you. You have been there many times as speaker. Vicky has been doing this higher education summit for last 1.5 decades now. And this year, unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we are not doing it on our usual November schedule, but we have pushed it to February. It's February 27th. I think, Rajesh, please come in if I'm spelling out wrong.
25th to 27th February.
25th to 27th. It's going to be a 3-day event. We are hoping that it will be probably again a hybrid kind of a program, where we will have physical as well as digital, conference and expo. If things don't work out, then perhaps we will go for a fully digital program. So all those who are participating here, please block your diaries and also pass the word around. I think Tara wanted to come in and say something, and I want to actually, before you come in, Tara, a special thank you to Tara, Param Shah, Rajesh Pankaj, Priyanka Upreti, and Shiv Shukla for organizing this particular webinar. Tara, over to you.
Thank you, Shobha. Then I will also start with thanks. That thank you so much for making it happen, for working to work with Rajesh, Nidhi, yourself, and all the eminent panelists. It's been really, really good for our UK university to know that there was a session like this. And I hope that we can do more. I want to say that UKIBC led 2 delegations to the FICCI Higher Education Summit back to back in November 2018 and 2019. And Professor Rycroft was a key member of that delegation and spoke at your summits. So we would love to, I know that there's a lot of interest amongst our UK universities about the next summit. So I'm happy to either, I hope it can be a physical delegation, but if not a virtual delegation, we would be happy to, because our UK universities are so keen to collaborate and do more and engage and to mutual benefit. They're focused on how they can work with India in a really mutually beneficial way. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tara, for being our, mouthpiece for marketing our higher education summit. Really value you. So with this, we come to close of this seminar. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you, participants, for staying till the last. And thank you, panelists, for giving your valuable time and knowledge to this session.
Thank you.
Good evening to you.